Hello and welcome to the Holy Rivals Show. I'm your host, Nathan Bomber Brown, and with me is my partner and soulmate, the Wild Ute. How
Hey,
you
what's
doing
going
today,
on?
Ute?
I'm doing great today. How you doing, Bomber?
I'm doing fantastic. Everybody likes days off from work, and we got a whole week in my household.
Absolutely.
So, what are we talking about? What's our show about today?
This is a special treat for you all. This matters a lot. We're actually parsing through and breaking out the research spending per conference, per school, in the Big 12 and Pac 12. And this is going to show you some really interesting details here, like who is actually a good candidate for each conference and who is a bad candidate too. And this matters to you. It's not just about athletics. If you're a university president, you need to care about this stuff and it's going to factor into realignment. So you need to check this out. So let's get into it, Bomber.
All right, let's dive in. Here we go. So this slideshow, by the way, was put together by Wild Ute, who is fantastic at data. So if you're not listening to him, you're doing it at your own problem. So here we go.
All right, here we go. We're going to start out. And what we did here is we took National Science Foundation data, and the NSF, the National Science Foundation, is the premier place to go grab data for research projects. It's trustworthy data, the best really that we can get. So what we've done here is we've broken out data per conference, and not just per conference, but per school in each conference to kind of get a lay of the land on how much research and development each school and each conference does. So check it out. So we have the ACC, the Big 12, Pac, and the SEC. And you can see there's some big stark differences here. Like the Pac schools spend a lot on research, almost on par with the Big 10, who's tops. And on the other side of the coin, the Big 12 typically doesn't spend as much with research, largely because they have private institutions which don't focus quite as much. But just wanted to show the lay of the land. This is actually the real data, the real break after the last 3 years of research spending per school. So Bomber, next slide. All right, now let's go take a look at the Pac-12 breakdown here. And you can notice that the University of Washington spends a lot on research and development. This is 10 years of data that we compiled here. And it's suggesting that Washington's almost spent $15 billion in research and development over the last 10 years, a massive amount. And you can just look down the list here. One of the things that's standing out to me, Bomber, the Oregon Ducks. What do you think about the Oregon Ducks?
I think that it's the University of Nike. If it wasn't for Phil Knight and him coming in and basically owning the athletic department, mostly football, some track, of the University of Oregon. They were a laughing stock at the beginning of the 90s. He came in roughly around 97 or 98, and now what we have is 25 years of success, and it's sustained success. But what this shows is the AAU membership that Oregon has is smoke and mirrors, and they are an athletic school. They are all about athletics, and obviously the research is not high on their priority list.
Absolutely. I mean, seriously, if you're the Big 10 and you're looking at expansion candidates, this is a glaring hole in Oregon, in the resume for Oregon. I mean, it's not athletically. They've got Phil Knight, the funding and everything, athletics-wise, but research spending, they're the last in the pack. Oregon State, Wazoo have more research spending than them over the last 10 years. So really, it's a big blemish in Oregon, and they're going to really need to lift that if they want to be a serious Big 10 candidate. So let's go to the next one. Yeah.
Really quick, I just wanted to say the people that are wanting these schools to go to different conferences, when you're looking at real data in context, holes like this that other people aren't recognizing are really called out. And it's not just raw data that matters, it's the interpretation and then distribution of truth that matters. And I think the Oregon Ducks right here is showing the world where their priorities are. Anyway, let me move on to the next one. There you go.
All right, now we're looking at the Big 12 breakdown. And you can see here Cincinnati, tops in the Big 12 conference coming in. They do focus on research. They're hovering around anywhere from 45 to 55 nationally. So really kind of on par with some of the four corner schools, like a Utah and ASU and Colorado. But you can see the tier down here, the focus, the glaring things are BYU, Baylor, and TCU. Yeah. Just don't focus as much on research spending. I mean, a lot of research spending comes from government sources. So
Right.
federal sources coming in. Private schools typically don't have as much of an emphasis on research spending. So it makes sense that you see those private schools lower on the
And the call outs on that data really should be stark, and people should actually pay attention. Why is I'm asking the world, and you can reply, we're asking for feedback. We want to know what you're thinking about this show, because what this shows immediately to anybody who can analyze data is that to religious institutions, to largely private institutions out in the world, you're going to have more BYU, Baylor, and TCUs then you're going to have Stanford's for where they put their money as a independent institution. And I can tell you, I can only speak for BYU. I can't speak for Baylor or TCU, but people have been critical in the last year about BYU's lack of research spending, and they're critical in how that money is actually going out to the world. And I can tell you right now that this is small, but if we ever do a deep dive on where BYU's money goes for charitable things, service-oriented money, money that goes to building up people's undergrad type institutional support, that's where BYU's money go. It does not go into hospitals and other technical research in broad strokes.
And Bomber, really, this we're not talking about the quality of education here. That's
Absolutely
not the
not.
argument. Like BYU, Baylor, TCU, they rank pretty high, like on lists and stuff as far as the top academic universities. We're just talking about research spending
Right.
and development of research dollars, if that's a focus of your university. So really, again, nothing about the quality of education, just the dollars spent here. And this is breaking out the 10 years dollars spent. So
And when you hear people talk about data like this and they don't put it in context, it really can make a, let's talk about Baylor for a second. People could say, well, they only spend what, $1 million on research? How horrible of an institution are they? Because that's where they spend their money. And you and I both know that is complete crap. And there's no good administrators that would support that opinion. And just because money goes to one area of another or another doesn't have a quality of service for that individual university.
yeah, let's move on.
I love this.
All right. This one is really telling everybody. Check this out. So this is looking at the Big 12 average research spending over a 10-year period, with the average Big 12 school, new Big 12, not Oklahoma or Texas, compares with the Four Corner schools and UConn. So really the main expansion candidates. And you can see here that the focus on research for Arizona, Arizona State, Utah, and Colorado is much higher than your average Big 12 school, largely because what we talked about with the private schools like BYU, TCU, and Baylor. But you can kind of just see here how I interpret this. This is one of the reasons I think that some of the Four Corner schools are hesitant to leave the pack and go to the Big 12 because of this focus on research.
Right.
That's such a big part of what we do that it's hard to make the move over to the Big 12. But looking at UConn still does pretty good research, more than the average Big 12 team, but more in line too with the average Big 12 team, which really kind of points to them as a pretty good candidate outside of just athletics, basketball, and everything else that they bring to the table, but more in line with the Big 12 average, at least for spending wise. So I think this one's pretty revealing to kind of see maybe what some university presidents are really wrestling with right now for all these schools.
And I think UConn is a great fit for the Big 12 for lots of reasons. Potential, that funny P word. Obviously, you're paying for potential, but this and other metrics have shown that I think they would be a good ad if that ends up happening.
Absolutely.
All right, let's go next. There you go.
All right, take a look at this. Okay, so this is the Pac-12 average spending per school compared to expansion candidates for the Pac. These are all G5 schools. Yo, look at SMU. SMU compared to the average Pac-12 university. We're not talking about the highest, like a Stanford and Washington. We're talking about the average Pac-12 university. This shows me that SMU, as far as a candidate, research candidate, it's a stretch, y'all. I mean, they're so far lower than everybody else. I know they bring a new market and everything else, but if the conversation's about research and alignment, this is a hard sell. I mean, SMU is a really good private school, but again, they're like Baylor or TCU.
Right.
It's just not, they're not like other Pac schools. So when you're looking at this, this is hard to really digest. But take a look at, Colorado State and Tulane, San Diego State, but Tulane's the one that really jumps out to me as being a pretty decent candidate alignment wise, university wise, because they do fairly well in their research spending. They're AAU and they bring the new market in New Orleans. So something to take a look at there. But really, SMU is very low. San Diego State's pretty low on this too. There's
Right.
strategic purposes to add San Diego State for recruiting. We all know that, but still a lot higher than SMU. So SMU being that candidate, that's kind of the secondary candidate. That's a tough sell. Those university presidents really need to consider.
And I got a question for you,
Yeah.
because as we look at this data, everybody talked about San Diego State as the perfect fit alignment for the Pac-12,
Mhm.
but just looking at the data, how is Colorado State or even Tulane not jumping to the top of any board? Colorado State does all kinds of research. They're funded by the government in large parts. They have huge research and development with technology. They do a lot of like nuclear type research, and I just don't understand why the messaging was all about San Diego State and SMU when it on the on this table right here it
Yeah.
shows they're nowhere near being culturally close.
They're not. It's completely strategic for San Diego State. Southern California is so critical to the Pac-12 for recruiting that you just have to grab a school down there. And so
Right.
it's almost like, yeah, I mean, it's they're not out of par, but like strategically, you have to have them. For
Interesting.
SMU that are in Texas and not really in the geographic footprint as much,
Right.
not the case. And plus, I mean, just alignment wise, I'm just not sure it's quite as good a fit. I mean, San Diego State's also a West Coast school, so it just seems to be a pretty good fit with a lot
Right.
of their West Coast Pac schools. But SMU is that outlier to me. That's it's a tough one. It's a stretch. But Tulane does offer strategically a lot of things to the new market that are there in New Orleans. And again, I think that academically, the most alignment out of everybody else. Colorado State, since you already have Colorado in house and stuff,
Right.
I don't think that they're going to get considered. If
But
Colorado
if
leaves,
Colorado leaves, yeah.
this
Yeah.
shows you if Colorado leaves,
Right.
yes, you must be a top candidate for sure. No
Right.
doubt about it. Like, just look at this. I mean, they almost fit right away.
Right.
And so, yeah, they'd be a really good consideration to add if
They're
CU.
more than Baylor. They're sorry, not Baylor. They're more than Oregon. They're more
Yeah.
than Oregon State. They're more than Washington State. And I don't, I just don't understand it. It seems like there was so much tunnel vision on the Pac-12's part. I'm not trying to be critical. We're sort of doing a post-mortem now on realignment and stuff. And I'm just trying to understand the messaging. We'll have to do that in a different show, but it's interesting the decisions that were made at the very beginning to sell some schools and not others.
Absolutely, and it's a really good point. CSU is a premier candidate if CU leaves, and in
Right.
fact, they're going to be almost as important as adding San Diego State. I mean,
I
those
agree with
those are
that.
probably your two ads, and then
Yeah,
you
I think
consider
so.
SMU after that. If
Yeah.
that happens, I mean, that's the domino to look at and everything. But hey, we did this presentation. We broke out the data, 18 years of data we considered. We're showing 10-year increments just for you, so you have the facts. This isn't just our conjecture or anything. This is fact driven based on real research and real data. And this is going to help you in those realignment conversations understand really what's going on outside of just the athletic part.
And we want to suggest to all of our watchers, viewers, that please give us feedback on this.
Mm-hmm.
We want to know what you guys want to get shows on. We've been asking for that for months. Please be part of the conversation. Leave comments and suggestions, because between me and Wild Ute, there's a lot of stuff that we can bring to you that we can get away from the realignment talk. Is it going to disappear until Pac-12 gets a media deal? No, it's not going to disappear. But we want to dive into the data, the things that are driving people's decision making. And we believe that we are providing a unique service. So please pass it on Twitter. Let people know about it on YouTube. If you're talking to people on Facebook or any other social media, Instagram, please tell people about this stuff, because it's really important that people get the data, but more importantly, that they get the context and they actually understand. We're not telling you what to believe. We're giving you the data so you can believe what you want to believe.
These are facts, facts, facts. So if this added value to you, share it. Share it so everybody's on the same page and we're not just making crap up. This is legitimate stuff, everybody. So really, share this, please, if it added value.
And please subscribe, leave a comment or suggestion, give us a thumbs up. Obviously, all that stuff matters. If you really like the content for the channel, please subscribe. There are 3 tiers that you can subscribe now, the cheapest being $3 a month. That will give you priority messaging back to us, but also to the community. And we are building a community here. I call it a family. It's not a joke. I know people use family all the time. It's overused. But everybody in my circle is my family. And I really want to make sure everybody knows we're not going away. We weren't built on realignment, and we're certainly not going to die because of realignment. So I hope you enjoyed this message. I'm Nathan Bomber Brown, and we got Wild Ute in the house. Catch us on Twitter and send us messages. We want to hear what you're thinking.
Yeah. Thanks all, and go Utes.
All right. Peace out.